Ji-Hyung Lee brings the first volume to a close with an inevitable battle between Brenna and Khalida for the right to possess the angelic and demonic daggers. Who's going to win? Let's find out. We're going to talk about it in our review of GUMAA, The Beginning of Her, number 7, from Titan Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. Before we dig into the review for this issue, let's recap quickly, in less than 60 seconds, what happened in issue number 6. Detective Ken went off to the ancient crumbling temple where Khalida first found the demonic dagger many years ago. He learned through basically a vision or some kind of energy that infused his mind that the demonic dagger is the result of a war that took place between heaven and hell eons ago. And as part of their truce, they put their respective powers into these relics or artifacts. The powers of hell and evil put their power into a demonic dagger, which is the one that Khalida now has. And then the angelic one was entrusted to a family, and it's been passed down to generations. And as a last-minute revelation, we find out that the family who's been carrying the dagger and passing it down is Brenna's, even though she doesn't quite know it yet. As soon as he comes to that last revelation, Khalida sends her exorcist to attack and kill Ken before he can pass on that information. That brings us to issue number 7. Brenna is racing through the woods looking for Ken. He manages to strike up a flare or safety flare to give off some light so she can find him. She catches up with him and he's almost dead. But we find out that he managed to survive the attack by the exorcist because he injected himself with some of that quote-unquote holy water that she got from Khalida. And that kept him alive long enough for Brenna to find him and for Ken to tell the story about the angelic dagger and the demonic dagger. And he says, you've got to find it, and that's the only way you're going to stop Khalida. Brenna doesn't want Ken to die, so she manages to foist him up and drag him out of the woods and heads to the only place where she knows he's going to get some help, which is Khalida's church. She storms through the front door and demands that she heal him. It's a risky move, but she goes for it. Khalida refuses to help, but she says, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to awaken whatever power is within you to get hold of the angelic relic. And so the two of us can be immortal. And so I won't be so lonely anymore and trapped within this demonic energy living forever. And she says, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to force it out of you. So Khalida sort of walks out of the room, but in that instant, all the parishioners that are sitting in the pews around her turn into rabid magi and begin to attack Brenna. Brenna does her best to fight them off. She uses guns, she uses axes, she uses whatever weapon she has and all the training she's got available to her, but it's just too much. She's overwhelmed by a huge swarm, a mob of magi. But in that last moment, there's a sort of a blackout, if you will. And suddenly the golden dagger appears in Brenna's hands. And then she blacks out. And when she comes to, all the magi are dead. She's holding the angelic dagger. And now she's got the weapon she needs to defeat Khalida. Khalida comes out of the back into the main chapel area. She sees that all her magi are dead, and Brenna has the angelic dagger. And she says, now you have the power. Now you're immortal like I am. Why don't you join me and we can be immortal together, and you can leave all this behind. Otherwise, I'm going to have to kill you. And then they fight. And it's exactly what you expect. It is a fight literally between good and evil. Now, the ending is ambiguous. And when I say that, I'm not going to spoil it too much here, but somebody does die, somebody does live, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the fight between good and evil is over, because there's a twist as far as what happens to the daggers, who gets them, and what they do with them. So let's talk about the technical aspects, beginning with the character work. Ji-Hyung Lee ends the volume by putting all the agency and attention and effort and energy on Brenna. She's attacked, she's attempted, she's ultimately given the choice to accept her fate or choose a different fate, and one that just doesn't affect her but affects the entire world. As the title kind of implies or suggests, it's the beginning of her, but her in this case is not Khalida, it's Brenna's story. And so the door is wide open to tell a new story about what happens next. Let's move over to the artwork. Ji-Hyung Lee and Nabetsu Zitro are doing the Lord's work, no pun intended, with the comic. It's artistic, it's dramatic, it's atmospheric, and it's just beautiful from start to finish. You can easily see how this is something that you could adapt into like an anime or even a live action film. It just looks that darn good. This is high quality art from any perspective. And so truly, this is just a beautiful looking comic. Switching gears to pacing and structure. Ji Hong Lee's pacing is smooth, it's brisk, it's got lots of energy, lots of urgency, and it really kicks in once Brenna finds Ken in the woods. He's in a deteriorating state. He looks like he's about to die. So as soon as she makes that discovery and it looks like he's about to meet his end, the pacing immediately picks up because the clock is ticking to get Ken someplace where he could be healed or saved or something. So once you get into the church with Khalida, now there's a fight not only to end the conflict, but also to potentially save Ken, if that's even possible. That said, there's a bit of a structural component that's missing, but it's pretty important. So during the fight with the Magi, Brenna is overwhelmed, and that conflict or that pressure sort of is what creates, or I would just say spawns, the angelic dagger from Brenna. But it's not quite clear how it happens. It's very quick, and it's sort of a succession of visible panels and black panels to imply that it's just sort of something's happening outside of Brenna's vision. And it's an important point. It's a really important point for the finale of the series, or at least this volume anyway. But it's very sort of implied rather than actually shown. And so you have to fill in the blanks a little bit, which is a bit of a bummer. Let's talk about the themes a little bit. In the simplest form, GUMAA, the beginning of her number 7, is at a plain Jane, straightforward battle between good versus evil. The last moments are kind of ambiguous, which could imply that who is good and who is evil is not quite clear. But on the surface, and as you dig into the covers, it really is just as simple as good versus evil. Final thoughts. What do we think about GUMAA, the beginning of her number 7? The volume ends with a classic good versus evil fight. The last minute change or switch up gives the impression that more story is coming. Maybe, we'll see. And it really calls into question who is really good and who is really evil, and where the line is and what they do with the power that they're given. Ji Hong Lee's tale is got a lot of urgency and energy, and then the art team with Ji Hong Lee and Nomitsu Zitro looks fantastic. This is a fantastic looking comic. Therefore, we're going to give this finale of GUMAA, the beginning of her, an 8.8 out of 10. What do you think about this story and the art combined? Do you want to see it continue? If you do, give us a thumbs up. Let us know you wanted to see more of this story. Otherwise, leave a comment and let us know what other stories that kind of fit in this realm that you think do it a little bit better. I want to hear your opinions on this topic. Thank you very much for joining, and please stay tuned through the outro for the next review.